is our monthly time with none other than Stan Deyo. Stan Deyo is going to bring us some news tonight. The sun is going crazy. I mean, did we find ancient evidence for energy being pulled out of the air? We're going to find out that and much more tonight on the Kingdom Intelligence Report with none other than Stan Deyo right after this. Welcome again one more time to the big picture, the Kingdom Intelligence Report, where every Thursday night right here at the same time, 7 p.m. Central Time, you can see on your screen, is the Kingdom Intelligence Report, where each week we have a different guest on here telling us about the events of the day and how they fit into Bible prophecy and how we can open up our eyes to what's really going on. First Thursday of each month, Paul Begley. Second, Ricky Scaparo from End Time Headlines. Tonight is the third Thursday, so that is Stan Deyo. And starting next month, in the month of August, and every month after that, Pastor Mark Carell will be on the fourth Thursday of each month. So that is what the Kingdom Intelligence Report is, and I'm going to bring in my guest tonight. Welcome, everybody, Stan Deyo. They always go crazy for you, brother. Yes, they always go crazy for you. They love Stan. How are you and Holly doing out there, sir?
Oh, doing fine. We've been enduring the little bit of the noise. It's about finished now, where they're installing the new high-speed data lines to our house. They had to tunnel underneath 200 feet of dirt to get to us because they were afraid to. Well, we had water lines to the orchard, and we had power lines and everything, and they couldn't go overland because it would just it would cut through too many things. So they dropped down 30 inches and put a bore through there, and darn this thing. Anyway, they drilled all the way over to the house and then up right to where they're going to hook it up. And come next Monday, they'll actually start letting us use this super duper high speed Wi-Fi, which will improve the video quality. We won't be kind of cutting out as much as we have in the past.
I don't know if you've heard this yet, but there is multiple more military whistleblowers that have come forward that have now agreed to testify openly about what they've seen and what they know. So do you really feel like that we are at the beginning of, and we don't spend a whole lot of time on this show, but do you feel like we're at a next phase of what we call disclosure or so forth? Or do you think this is just a diversion?
Yeah. No, I don't think it's diversion. I think they're going to push this. Look, for this satanic deception to work, people of the world, not just the United States, have to want help from somebody to solve the problems with the planet and with their governments. Over 2/3 of the planet's countries have civil disobedience going on now against their governments, unhappy. So when you get enough people of the planet unhappy with their government, then you don't have to take over the planet with a new world order. You offer it as a solution. And not from any particular religion or political or nation state. It's got to be from outer space. No track record and no baggage. And we're so close to that now. Then and I see them talking about it so rapidly. We're spending so much time here in this country against the problems with our leadership. It tells me that it's close. I'd say within the next year, maybe even the next few months, that they're going to make the announcement saying they're here. And the offer will be made to the people of Earth. We are here to help you.
So we don't want to sit on UFOs. By the way, we have a show here. You can search for it on my channel where Sandy and I did a complete show talking about UFOs. We're going to have a follow-up show with Stan on UFOs, UAPs, aliens, and so forth to really pick his brain on the next level of what's going on there. But Stan, there's so much going on in our solar system with our sun. You have been warning your viewers, not just on our show, but so many other shows, that the sun is going into a whole nother level of crazy activity. So can we inform our viewers on the big picture in the Kingdom Intelligence Report what you have seen that's going on with our sun, and how is that corresponding to what's going on here at the Earth?
All right, yeah. Yesterday I pulled down a few of the images from the sun because, as I've been talking about, I've revised my opinion about the planetary alignments of the major gas giants and how they would affect the sun, which would then affect the Earth. Back in 78 through 1982, we all thought, the astronomers that were working on this, that the alignment of the gas giants, a huge gravitational pull of them all together on one side of the sun, with the Earth being in the middle of all that, focus-wise, that it would seem that we would be having a lot of coronal mass ejections and flares, discharges from the sun, and it didn't happen. We had just normal activity, normal sunspot activity, and so we walked away, shut the book with egg on our face, and said, "Well, gosh, that didn't work." Then, a few months back, I thought, "Wait a minute, if you have all this gravitational mass of these planets on the same side of the sun with Earth, that's pulling the backside of the sun's surface more toward Earth, where we are,
Right.
and concentrating all this plasma and magnetic storms, whatever." And that's when we thought it would happen. But suppose that the activity of these spinning loops of magnetic flux and stuff that throw out CMEs and flares and junk, suppose that when you thin the surface of the sun by pulling it, with the gravitational force of these planets, away from the Earth side, thinning it, in other words, thinning the surface of the sun facing the Earth, then you might see a lot more of these events escape the sun and hit the Earth. And so then I did my due diligence and looked at where the gas giants are today. And goodness gracious, here's the sun, and the gas giants are around here, and we're just coming into the middle of all that, which means that we're not expecting as much bad solar activity as we will be over here in February,
Mm.
March, April next year.
Wow. Wow.
It's going to be thin on the sun, and it's going to be free to throw a lot of junk our way.
Mm.
But even though it's not as thin as it will get thin right now, we're seeing things occur on the sun that are, let me just see here, not really happy things to see. Well, if you can see this show images page from our website,
Yes.
this is one I prepared yesterday. Slide 58 here at the top left is showing some of the activity on the sun, recent activity. I'm just going to click this and show the video.
Okay.
And you're talking about several million miles of stuff throwing out from the surface of the sun.
Wow.
Now, we're going to catch a little bit of that, the edge of it, because it's turning away from the Earth at the moment. But if that had occurred up in the middle of the sun, back up in here, closer to the equator and aimed at us, we might have seen a Craton event from 1859 where it wiped out all kinds of electronics and electricity and things like that on the planet. Now, this is just a look at the same thing, but from further out. You can see how far all that stuff goes.
Mm.
It's a huge, huge eruption. We're at the lowest level here. Let me see if I've got that here. Sunspots in 20 years. Going to go down to slide 49. This is some spaceweather.com that I visit every day, at least once a day. And it's saying that sunspot count hits a 21-year high.
Mm.
And here's the graph of the sunspot activity,
Wow.
these curves.
Wow.
And if you look at today's heat weather and stuff from NOAA, they're saying that we're seeing all-time highs in the sea surface temperature, say like off of the Florida coast and things. Never
Yeah.
been this high in recorded history. And of course, if you're in some of the zones of the country that feel the heat, you've probably been for the last 2 or 3 days feeling a bit of heat. We're breaking records over here. I don't know about where you are, but we're certainly seeing.
Well,
and I think it's going to get worse.
Of course, the narrative here is it's climate change that's doing this, but you're saying, it's directly related to the activity, the actual activity of the sun that's setting these records. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I've said this many times, but if you were in charge of the world or major nations of the world, governments, and your scientists came up and said, look, we're approaching a situation on the sun that's going to affect our climate severely, but we can't do anything about it. Would you then tell people, look, we're facing a situation where it's no win? You'd create anarchy on the whole planet if you did that. So instead, you say, yeah, let's blame it on things that you might have some influence on, so you feel happy. Don't drive your gasoline-driven cars, and don't have as many cows and cow gas and whatever.
Yeah.
And so people think, okay, well, look, okay, we have to pull in our horns and do this properly and be responsible. And that's a good idea anyway. But while you're doing that, you're distracted from what is coming. And it's going to
Right.
be pretty bad, according to the Bible, even. It's
Yeah.
going to hit 1/3 of the planet with one burst from the sun that's going to
Mm.
fry green grass trees, boil the seas in that 1/3 that's exposed to the sun at that moment. So I do, from looking at prophecy and which nations survive, um, I think we're going to see that the uh, or United States, part of the Northeast Pacific, part of the Northwest Atlantic, and down to the equator and below that into South America, that's going to get hit with this huge burst of solar energy that's going to fry everything. Because China is still in the Old Testament, in the prophecies for the end days. Middle East is still in there. Europe is still in there. So that, by reason, that tells you that when this blast hits us, it's going to hit the United States and South America primarily,
Mm.
and take them out of the game. So this
Yeah,
is why it's
because
important.
because
Yeah.
there's always been so much speculation between end times prophecy teachers. Why is America not there? Is it a nuclear explosion? Is it something else? But you're saying that more than likely what's going to wipe us out is, you're saying, something tied to the sun is going to affect. It's going to be more targeted towards the United States. Is that your theory?
Yeah, that's my theory,
Okay.
hypothesis even at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, the burst of energy that we're talking about is going to be huge, and the actual direct exposure of the surface of the planet facing the sun when that happens is about 1/3 of the surface area of the whole planet.
Hmm.
It's about like that. Around the edges, it glances off, and we don't feel it. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing, and what I believe is going to happen.
Okay.
Also, it brings to mind the story, or the scriptures mentioning the end times Babylon, the Babylon of the end times,
Yes.
and how it's destroyed, and like a millstone cast into the ocean, it's completely destroyed.
Hmm.
Well, if we are the modern Babylon, if we are, then that might explain that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
so,
So
yeah,
what?
all right. So now,
So
yeah,
what
go
else
on.
is going on here that you've got on your show images and on your website, standale.com, or something else that you need to alarm our listeners, or give a heads up to the Kingdom Intelligence Report Big Picture audience?
This is something that's rather
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I
Um,
was looking at this earlier. So yeah, I'm interested in what's going on here.
Now, I visited a fellow's website I go to often who analyzes earthquakes and where they're occurring and where they're probably going to shift to in various periods of time, based on the data he's got. And here we see a map of the United States as you would see it. All these rings are earthquakes that he plotted in
Mm.
June 22nd. It was a 48-hour period of plotting. Now, he noticed, if you'll notice, all these earthquakes are apparently forming an
Mm-hmm.
outline around the United States.
Yeah.
And that outline is what's called the North American Craton
Hmm.
outline. And it's like the United States sits on a foot, and it's the Craton underneath us. And that's made up of very hard, compressed, material. And at the edge of it here, of course, that means this portion of the United States, and of course down here into Central America, is on the crust of the earth, but not supported by the Craton. So
Wow.
that when you have shakings occur, it makes the green and purple areas wobble a bit up and down, left and
Hmm.
right. Now, when you suddenly see all these earthquakes following that, your mind has to go to the thought, what if this is going to release the San Andreas Fault and some of the parallel
Wow.
faults
Yeah.
that are over there?
Yeah.
And this is in the last 3-4 weeks here.
Hmm.
So I think we ought to be aware of that. Let's see
That is
here.
very interesting. That it is literally, because you look at the North American, there's no quakes being registered in the middle or all the way up into Canada. It's along the perimeter, so
Yeah,
it's very, very interesting. Very interesting.
we're very exposed there with that. Um, the In New Zealand, there's also some earthquake activity that we can look at in slide 48. Now, this is a summation over a period of time. Um, what we're seeing here is North Island up here and South Island here,
That's
and you
all
can see
earthquakes. That's all
that's
earthquakes.
earthquake, but it's
My
over a
God.
period of time, like maybe a year or something. I forget the
Okay.
exact
Okay. Okay.
amount, but it's showing where these earthquakes occur, and it's along a line which comes out of the west coast of South Island, and then over to the middle of North Island, and then up to White Island, where there's a volcano. Now, let's see here if I can get to it. Okay, here's another look at it showing the strength and the depth of these earthquakes, forming an outline. Okay, and then we're going to get rid of this. And I'm going to show you how serious this situation is with New Zealand. The geophysical group there, GNS, in New Zealand, or like our USGS, made this video, and let me just put it up here.
New Zealand's plate boundary.
You hear the sound?
Yes.
In New Zealand, the Australian and Pacific plates push against each other along a curving boundary. How they meet each other changes along this boundary. At the southern end of the South Island, the Australian plate dives down below the Pacific plate. In the North Island, the opposite situation occurs, with the Pacific plate being pushed under by the Australian plate.
Wow.
In between, through most of the South Island, the two plates grind past each other along the Alpine Fault.
Interesting. Wow.
Now, what she's telling you there is that there are two major vectors. There's the up and down plate movement, and then there's the sliding past each other movement affecting both islands. And on this particular graph here, let me get to this point here. Where's the North Island? Let me just get up here a bit. Okay. Now, that's grinding. I want separation. Here we go. This is the North Island, and when she was showing the plate movement, the Pacific diving underneath here, there's this pressure zone right here between them, right? And right in this area here, right about here, is where Lake Taupo is, which is that very active, in about 8200 or 88, I think it was actually, it erupted and made 3 days of darkness from the ash fall in the northern hemisphere. The Chinese recorded it was a huge explosion, as big as Yellowstone or bigger, and that area is being stressed right there.
Wow.
By this tug of war and by this plate shifting. And that's why I feel it's important for you to see that and visualize that, because there's going to be a release of that. I've had dream visions of that probably 20, 25 years ago.
Yep.
And the Maori kahuna woman has been telling her people that it's coming, and it's going to cause a lot of the Europeans to leave or be killed in the North Island. And I've talked with her directly, so it's not by hearsay. So this area here is like to New Zealand, it's like we're worrying about our tectonic plate in our Craton over here on slide 46. These two areas are being greatly affected. And if you look at the Craton boundaries, Yellowstone is right in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right on the line.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make that, make that point, make it clear. Now, you mentioned at the early of the show, I talked to you off air about the work that my son Jeff and I have been doing on this device to collect electricity from the atmosphere.
Yes.
Or, from the, the fine structure, the ether sea, whatever you want to call it. And Jeff rang me, I think it was 2 days ago, and he said, "Dad, you won't believe this. I was watching a TV documentary on the, Middle East, Mesopotamia, and all that stuff, in the ancient civilizations. And they came up with a slide of something that looks very similar to what you and I have been talking about building for this wheel to collect the electricity out of the environment. So he sent me a link to that picture. I'm just going to share that with you now if I can.
Yep,
Now,
there it is. There it is.
okay. Well, now what you see here is, it's like Sumerian or Babylonian or one of those ancient kingdoms there in the valley there, which is now the Gulf of Arabia. And here's a device, and we see that it has one set of, let's say, 6 points on a disc, and then an overlay of 6 points on that disc, maybe the opposite side. And you see an image of what is either the king or God, whatever,
Right.
controlling something in his hands, connecting to this wheel. And we thought, wow, that looks so much like what we were talking about, what we were
Oh, my
doing.
goodness.
And before I show you that, let me just go ahead and switch over here and show you this. This was another from the same period of time showing gods being up in the air above the moon even. And this spoked set of spokes with balls on the end. And you can see that there are at least one, maybe two depths. Yeah, two depths to
Yeah.
these balls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is.
And then through something, I don't know whether this is a fish god or whatever, but it comes down to a device to use that power. And you see all these little balls, and then you see what could be lightning strikes inside there forming electricity.
Wow.
So I'll just stop sharing that for the moment. This is part of what he and I are designing.
So this is your CAD design. This is your CAD design.
Yeah, and here are the spokes, and there are the balls, and they run past a little collector and things over here. But when I looked at it, I thought, goodness gracious, are we looking at what was ancient power, power source given to the Mesopotamian Valley? Anyway, yeah.
So here's my question. So when you and your son designing this, the design of that, the wheel and the spokes and all that you're working on that CAD design, did that just come from your head, or
Actually, we've talked about it when we mentioned this project before. We drew on a device that Benjamin Franklin first developed, which had spokes on it. Now, his was like flat to the earth, like horizontal instead of vertical. And it had thimbles on glass rods, all connected to the center thing like we've got, and two, one collector, one emitter type thing, two little Leyden jars, one on either side of it, to collect the electricity. And he would then have to rub cat's fur or a sulfur ball or something to generate a static charge and put it onto one of these Leyden jars and make its voltage higher than it's in the other Leyden jar. And so he would then start the spinning, just push it, and the thimbles would run past this charge point here, go around, and deposit their charge into this other Leyden jar, and then come back for another load and come back, and that made the wheel turn until the charges were equal. Now, there were a number of things that if he had done or been able to do at the time, he might have already been able to draw electricity in great amounts rather than produce it from rubbing cat's fur on stuff. He was horizontal rather than vertical. The vertical immediately sets a potential difference between the top of the wheel of those spokes and the bottom. And the direction that wheel turns, east or west, the line or the plane cutting the turning wheel should be like this and be north-south, whereas the face, where as you're looking at it, where these things are spinning, you can see it, would be east-west. All these things are a way to maximize the voltage differentials you're going to tie into in the atmosphere and in what's called the ether seed that we all live in. And so he was close then, but what you have to do then is you have to have a little crank and spin your wheel fast enough to make a high voltage impulse, like a push, a thump, up into the atmosphere, but it's really up into the ether seed that we live in, and it's where the charge gradient is. For every foot of height above ground, you can generate about 30 volts. So
Wow.
6 volt, a 6 foot tall guy would have 190 volt charge between his head and his feet, which normalizes, with the atmosphere and everything. But with just that alone, you can have a potential difference that you start to multiply by spinning like that.
Wow.
And then the beauty of it is that, but collecting it that way and then using it, you have to use it. You don't just store it. Let's say you put a kilowatt load on it, on this spinning device and the collectors, then you don't want to keep turning it. You want it to turn itself. And so it does this by the charge difference. At the top part here, when the balls on the little glass spokes are coming along, right here is one of the Leyden jar's electrodes, and it's going to donate, say, the plus charge to these balls. As soon as this ball on this glass rod gets a plus charge, it's going to hate this one here and move away from. And so you set it up so that it gets pushed away.
And that creates
Okay.
the perpetual. And that
Well, yeah,
so
yeah.
so it spins on its own without having to have somebody crank it. So you're saying that is what creates the constant turning.
Absolutely correct.
And then
yeah.
the unlimited free energy. This is mind-boggling.
It is. And the thing is, like I said, at this point, you need to put a load on it. You don't want to, because once it gets a charge and fills the other Leyden jar with charge, they're now equal, and they
Right.
won't be getting
Gotcha.
pushed. So you've got to put a load on it. And
Well,
there's so many ways to do
I'm
that.
gonna be honest with you, Stan. I keep saying "gotcha," but my mind is blown. Actually, I'm trying to follow, but I mean, ladies and gentlemen, do you understand what you're watching on the Kingdom Intelligence Report? You're watching the modern day Nikola Tesla named Stan Deyo. He is literally finishing what he started, and mind blown even more, maybe finishing what an ancient civilization did. And Benjamin Franklin was trying to do. This is crazy. But Stan, Sandy and I have prayed for you so many times because we talked about this, what you're doing, you and your sons are doing and all this. And we know what's happened to everybody else that's ever tried to give away free energy. So we're praying for you, brother, because the government and the business entities do not want this to see the light of day.
Yeah. And, the difference is that, like, Tesla didn't want to give it away because there were a bunch of idiots out there that were trying to capitalize on it.
Right.
And like T. Henry Moray, he was trying to make a living from it, so he had to patent it, or file the patents. They wouldn't let him have it, but then, so he could earn an income from it, which is fair enough for his work.
Sure.
But what we're doing differently is, as we go through the search process, the research and development, we are sharing it openly. No one can patent it then. It's now public knowledge, do you see?
So you're putting
there's-
it out there as open source, like open source software, where everybody has access to sort of the DNA of what you're doing. So they're not having to pay you a royalty to get into it. Am I saying this correct? You're just making it available.
Yeah. And look, there's no point to keep it secret, because this is for the church and the people during the tribulation that are not yet believing but will be. When they're in the wilderness where they can't own property because they don't take the number, they're going to need food, energy, clothing.
Yeah.
And if we can make this so they can build this thing with the things you can get at the equivalent of a Lowe's, hardware store, and the knowledge to how to do it, they may have better things to do it with. But once the principle of this is shared, then there are a lot of ways that they can build it and make it themselves. And
Wow.
we all profit from that. I mean, it's, yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. Well, Stan, we're getting close to the end of the program, and before we go, I want to just sort of pick your brain on, sort of circle back to what we started with about the whistleblowers, and we consider you in our life the go-to expert, the go-to to get the facts and so forth. But when you look at this whistleblower thing that's happening, because there's so many distractions going on with the Hunter Biden thing, as you said earlier, with all the different news breaking, and not to mention the fact that there's wars happening all over the world. And I just did a show the other day about some information that was given to me regarding America and China going to war in 2024. It's almost an surety. So you got all that going on, and then in the middle of it, it just seems convenient that the UFO disclosure would come at that time. Like you said earlier, you got wars going on, you got famines going on, and so forth. Do you think anything is going to come out of the Senate intelligence reports, or is that smoke and mirrors? The real reporting is going to be done on independent shows like your show, like my show, and so forth, with these whistleblowers coming and getting that information. Do you think that's smoke and mirrors what we're hearing in front of the government And they're just only telling us very limited stuff just to sort of quiet us and keep us quiet during this time? Or do you think we're really going to get some facts?
You're going to get some facts. The problem is being able to act on those to, get benefit from exposing all this nonsense. And there's a bit of nonsense occurs on both sides, the Republicans and Democrats. Let's be fair about it.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's threatening the nation's security, with the balance of power going to the pro-communist Democratic side of the various Senate and congressional committees. The What it's accenting is what I've mentioned before, is that 2/3 of the countries of the earth, their people are revolting or marching against their government with complaints and street marches and that kind of stuff, being unhappy with their leadership. And when they are that unhappy across the planet, not just in America, it is a prime time for some third party to come in to the planet with no track record, no religious, no political, no financial, baggage, and say, look, you're in trouble. You're where our planet was, thousands of years ago before we found peace. And we can come in and help you set up a world government to solve your problem. But you'll have to turn over your governments to us, and
Right.
we'll help you remove those that are in power in your countries now. And that can happen. I mean, we're seeing this coming to a very, very critical point in the next 12 months or less. Now, I don't know where you got that thing about the war with China or whatever in 2024, but I agree. I mean, just the evidence that we're seeing in current events and the economy, and the lack of a government in this country, and the lack of resources to defend ourselves. I saw a report today that the United States Air Force is out of money. It can't afford to buy fuel for its planes.
Wow. Wow.
And we are in such trouble. That means that we can't endure much longer before China and Russia both say, hey, it's time. Let's go clean up America, get rid of it, loot it for what resources we need, and then let them die.
Well, one of the things that was told to me in confidence, an anonymous source told me that in Cuba, we had already reported that that China was building bases on Cuba. But this anonymous report told me personally that they're already there. The missiles are already there, and they're locked on. They've identified the top 50 targets in the continental USA, and they've already got missiles locked on those, and waiting for this to happen. And that, we're moving military assets to the Pacific Rim on levels that we've not seen in a generation. So it's just like everything is moving quickly towards a global war, and as you said, in need of a global savior. Even though you and I know we already have a savior, but that Antichrist spirit is alive and well.
Yeah, spacemen messiahs, they call
them. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, you just watch the news every day. It's getting worse, and to a boiling point where it's got to spill over. And the communists have so bribed so many of our politicians and so influenced our world power in various ways, militarily, and putting our resources over into Ukraine when we needed them here, that, we can't defend ourselves. You'd be an idiot in China or Russia if you didn't take advantage of the United States now, because you could just virtually just march in.
Wow.
Just before we get off, I want to go back to that Franklin motor 1, 2, 3, 4.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. This is that Leyden jar, which is just a capacitor. The same thing, a capacitor here. And these are glass rods and thimbles that, they get this charge here makes this thimble negative to the negative here, and so it pushes away, carrying a negative charge over here to this plus, and it says, oh, I like plus, I'm going to go there. And as it does, it deposits into that Leyden jar, and then you have a plus charge on there, and this thing kicks around here, and so that's what makes it move around like that.
And this was Benjamin Franklin's invention in the 1700s.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
This is his original invention, how it looked.
Wow.
And it was an interesting party favor. He could charge it up, and this mystery thing, this fluid called electricity, would make these little thimbles spin around, and they would go for a while until the charge dissipated and equalized, and people would be amazed and go back to have a cocktail and talk about it. But this thing was horizontal. Turn it on its edge, you'll have an instant potential difference between these two. Anyway, that was I wanted to leave that with you.
And as we close, we remind the listeners and the viewers again exactly what we said earlier is that, if somebody was trying to hoard this, you wouldn't have just shown us this. You are literally on our show and on other people's shows and on your own productions. You're just letting people know what you've discovered, and you're also saying that you're really sort of coming on top of the foundations of some other people that's very widely known, like a Benjamin Franklin and like a Nikola Tesla and many of the others, and all the way back. We're like you said, we're now finding ancient civilizations that were having something similar. I think that's a whole nother show right there that we need to come in and just sort of talk about the ancient civilizations could have possibly had power. I mean, guys, think about this.
Well, how did they get into the bowels of the pyramids and put hieroglyphs and stuff in there without torches? Because there were no torch marks up on the roof. They had some form of electricity.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I agree 100%. And like I said, I think that might be another show that we would just sort of talk about that, because that is a mind-boggling thing, and I think you would be an expert to do that. Stan, we are so excited that each and every month you are a part of a rotation of 4 great men of God that are being used in this last day. I know you know of it. I know you know at least Paul Begley. I don't know if you know Mark and Ricky. They are phenomenal guys. But first, second, third, and fourth Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. Central is the Kingdom Intelligence Report, and you'll be with us each month at the same time. And I'll tell you what, Sandy and I agree. She couldn't be on the show with us today. That's killing her because she loves you so much, man. I told you before, she's the president of the Stan Deyo fan club.
Thank you.
So we are so grateful and humbled that you would agree to be a regular guest on our program, giving us information that we couldn't get anywhere else. And so, Stan, I thank you so much for being with us here tonight. And we look forward to seeing you again next month. And we want to say to you and Holly, hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Larry. And I do appreciate all that you guys are doing for us and the other guys helping us spread the word out here. So, Sandy, sorry you couldn't be here, but thank you for your help, too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye for now.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And I want to tell you that you need to go. All of this will be down in the show notes of this program. But you need to go to standeyo.com, standeyo.com. They have news, they have information, they have the show images tab that you hit. All the things that you saw on the show is there. You have ways of getting his books, ways of buying his DVDs, his videos, everything about what he's doing. EMP Shield is there. We have it in our house. We have it for our vehicles. We believe in everything that Stan is doing, the cutting-edge things that he's doing that you just heard on this program. All of it is at standeyo.com. You need to go there. And to our Big Picture audience, we want to say how much we appreciate you. We want to say thank you to all those that are partners that have clicked that join button down below, partnered with us $5 a month. We say thank you, thank you, thank you. If you don't already follow us on Rumble, follow us on Rumble. Go to rumble.com/Larry Ragland, rumble.com/Larry Ragland. And if you're joining us for the first time tonight, our biggest show that we do of the week is every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central. Me and my wife, Sandy, we co-host a show called The Big Picture Live right here. I tell you, people are watching from all over the world. We're covering news that is not woke, but is certainly awake. And last but certainly not least, every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central, I do a verse-by-verse breakdown of the book of Revelation and teach the Bible if you're interested in that. So thank you for joining us on The Big Picture. We always try to remind you, whether it's Kingdom Intelligence Report, Big Picture Live, Bible study, or anything, here on The Big Picture, we ain't woke, but we are certainly awake. God bless you. See you next time.